Five Nights at Freddy's.
To quote a page from the Freddy files,
It's the game that launched a million screams. Five Nights at Freddy's, FNAF for short, is a point-and-click horror survival game that was founded on a simple enough premise. Last 1 week working as a night guard in a pizzeria populated by homicidal animatronics. But what evolved from this concept quickly consumed games the world over. Fast forward a bit and, thanks in part to FNAF's startling jump scares, hilarious/terrifying Let's Plays dominated video sharing sites, fueling the public's curiosity and resulting in billions of views. Still, gamers soon realized that there was more to FNAF than just deadly animatronics. Lurking in the darkened corners of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza are the threats of a disturbing mystery. This mystery, hidden throughout the game in posters that change, hallucinations, and even the mysterious fifth animatronic, has kept fans playing and replaying the first game since it was released in August of 2014. So, what's all the hype about?
I'm glad you asked. In today's video, the second edition of the 10 Years Later series, I'll be going through a few topics which will help define what the game is, my personal experience with the games, the impact it's had, and how the game holds up to today's standards. I'd like to apologize real quick for this video being pretty delayed. Originally, I scripted and recorded everything to be said on FNAF's 10th year anniversary on August 8th. Unfortunately, I was pretty busy with some stuff and had to focus on college, but with Halloween here, I thought it'd be no better time to talk about one of my favorite, most influential indie horror games ever.
Each section of the video is split into chapters, so feel free to bounce around wherever you'd like. Also, most of the footage I use comes from these YouTube videos right here, which I've linked below. With that being said, let's start the... Hold on just 1 second. I'd like to explain quickly that for this and any of the future foreseeable 10 year later videos, the format I'll be using consists of 10 parts. The introduction, story summary, story analysis, gameplay mechanics, soundtrack, visual style, extra stuff like any Easter eggs, fun facts, my personal experience, today's standards, and conclusion. I feel like this format I made helps break down what a game is, how it works, and personalizes it with myself. If there's any suggestions or ideas you'd like to see or add, feel free to leave a comment below or tag me in my Discord server. With that out of the way, don't forget to subscribe, and let's go back to the video. Before I get into the story, I would like to break down the summary and the analysis into two separate parts. What's confirmed or heavily implied by the games, and the theories. That being said, the story of Five Nights at Freddy's is pretty simple. It starts with a help wanted newsletter by Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, who's looking for a night guard. Accepting the job, your task is to stay put from 12 to 6 a.m. for 5 nights. You're given surveillance cameras to look around the place and take care of the animatronic mascots. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. You receive phone calls from an unknown person who has been dubbed Phone Guy. He explains a few key details. The animatronic servos get locked up if powered off for too long, so they must remain on. As a result, they're able to roam around the place freely until the bite of 87 happened, where someone got their frontal lobe bitten off or whatever, but survived. If the animatronics see you, they'll think you're an endoskeleton without a suit and they'll try to stuff you, so it's probably best to avoid that from happening. And lastly, conserve as much power as you can. Only use when absolutely necessary. As you progress through the night, the animatronics start roaming on their own one by one until they get to your office. By shutting the doors when needed and saving power, you survive the first night, only 4 more to go. Phone Guy explains a bit of lore. The animatronics start to get more aggressive, but all in all, it's mostly the same survive the night shtick. However, by the 4th night, Phone Guy was killed off by the animatronics and never heard from again. Once you complete your 5th night, you're given a paycheck, and that's the end of the game. Kind of. There's an extra optional 6th night, which once beaten gives you 50 cents of overtime. What a scam. At least there's one more 7th night, harder than the last, which once you beat it, you get a notice? You're fired? And yeah, that's pretty much the story. Or at least, that's what it seems like on the surface. In reality, there are tons of clues that suggest there is a deeper, darker, hidden story lurking within the games. Occasionally, you'll receive a meeting from this mysterious 5th animatronic who looks like Freddy but is limp, lifeless, and golden. You see posters change and text saying "it's me," but most importantly, hidden in one of the cameras is a series of secret newsletters. They detail the story of 5 kids who suddenly vanished from a Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. Later, those children were reported missing, with the suspect now caught and convicted for their disappearance. Then, the pizzeria was threatened to close due to sanitation issues, mainly blood and mucus found from the eyes and mouths of the animatronics, with foul odor coming from them as well. Finally, the pizzeria was set to shut by the end of the year. This is where the story starts crossing between what's been told in-game and what's been speculated online. The 5 missing children seem to be connected with the 5 animatronics. It's assumed that the killer, who was found on tape and used a mascot costume to lure the kids, murdered the 5 kids and stuffed their bodies in the animatronic suits. Now the kids possess the animatronics and seek revenge. Mike Schmidt, the main character as shown through the checks, could have a possible connection with the kids, which is why he keeps coming back every night and why they're being haunted. One famous theory by the game theorists suggests that Mike is the killer and he is stuck in a mental purgatory of being trapped in where he once killed those kids. Either way, most of it after the news clippings is just speculation with not a lot to go off on. The concept of the game is amazing. Mix together the elements of a horror game with the already horrific look of Chuck E. Cheese Pizzeria and boom, you got a banger. I like how on the surface the story seems so simple, but it's much more complex than that. I remember when people were going on about the missing children's incident or why Freddy had a handprint on his face. Scott told us just enough, but let the rest of the mystery up for us to interpret, which makes the experience of learning what went wrong in Freddy's Pizzeria much more intriguing. I mean, the complex lore of Five Nights at Freddy's is something people still heavily debate to this day. Each animatronic, despite not saying anything at all, feel like they have a lot of personality based on how they hide, attack, and stare at you from the dark. It really sets in this creepy mood, which Scott did so well at. Phone Guy was also a great way to explain the story without breaking the flow of the game. Despite how much I like about what Scott did with the story, for his first game he left a lot of stuff vague, such as who caused the bite of 87, who is Golden Freddy, who is Phone Guy, and why can't we turn off the fan? Questions that sadly we don't have a straight answer to years later. The story is also really dark. I mean, 5 dead kids haunting robots to kill you? Creepy. Most of the lore is also kept hidden, so unless you go looking for the answers afterwards, you'll be left unsatisfied. However, I like Scott's approach to the story and what he made. I feel like there isn't much else to talk about here, but what there is to talk about, I mostly enjoyed it. The gameplay for FNAF 1 is interesting. You're supposed to survive 5 nights without getting caught from 12 to 6 AM, with each hour lasting roughly 89 seconds for almost 9 minutes per night. Wow. You're given tools to defend yourself with. You have a camera with 11 different spots to look at: the stage, dining area, Pirates Cove, West Hall Corner, Supply Closet, East Hall Corner, Backstage, Kitchen, and Restroom. You're also surrounded by 2 big metal doors. Each door has 2 buttons, one to check the lights and the other to close the door. Using either camera, light, or door drains your energy, indicated by the bar at the bottom left. The more stuff is being used, the more energy is drained. Your cameras do have a blind spot, which unfortunately is right where your door is. So use those lights wisely to find the animatronics at the door and quickly react before it's too late. Each animatronic will have a set pattern they follow. Bonnie attacks from the left, Chica from the right, Freddy attacks in the shadows but cams the right door, and Foxy, well, he's a bit complicated. Foxy has his own camera dedicated to him called Pirates Cove. He may seem out of service, but this is far from true. Throughout the night, Foxy will slowly make his way out, before making a run towards your door. Quickly shut the door on time to prevent him from entering, and he'll reset back to Pirates Cove. Each time he shows up to your door, he steals 1% from your battery, plus an additional 5% for every time he decides to visit again. The more you hover the camera over him, the slower he gets, and this goes for all animatronics. Run out of power and, well, game over. That's pretty much the basics of the Five Nights at Freddy's gameplay. You'll have cameras to check the animatronics location, you use the light to check if they're here, and use the door to shut them out. It's mostly a mix of luck, skill, and knowledge. Knowing how each animatronic works, being quick enough to react, and having them not spawn camp your doors. The gameplay is fun at first, but may feel repetitive and boring after 5 nights. The game also gets progressively more difficult with each night. First only introducing Bonnie and Chica, then Foxy, and Freddy. I like how you're given the liberty of being able to mess around with the surroundings in the first few hours of the first few nights. It helps set in the mood of what you got yourself into and how you're going to survive this mess. Once you beat all 5 nights, you get a 6th harder night, and then once you beat that, you'll have one final custom night. Here you could choose the difficulty of your night, with each animatronic being set in a scale of 0 being baby mode to oh god save me 20. This is where the term 420 mode comes from, setting each animatronic to max difficulty for one final night. It's like I said before, fun gameplay, probably the best, most fleshed out and iconic in the series, but gets boring over time, especially if you suck at it like me. Huh. there's not much to do here. I mean, if we're talking strictly soundtrack wise, I mean, it's Five Nights at Freddy's, come on, there's barely any music here. What do you expect? Upbeat, intense music as you're fighting your life, stopping animatronics from killing you? Now that I think about it, that would be really cool to see. But anyways, I digress. For the soundtrack, there's barely anything here, but what there is, oh boy, let me tell you. First off, the menu theme is great. I like it a lot and it has this creepy vibe to it which I enjoy. The background noise that plays in the office is pretty fitting. It's just like something that would play during a survival Chuck E. Cheese horror game, #relatable. This kinda counts, but the music box Freddy plays, Theodore March, is sick. It fits his mystique pretty well and it's so iconic. Since there's not a lot going for FNAF 1 soundtrack wise, there is something else music related that I'd like to highlight here, which is the use of auditory clues and design. There's this really good YouTube video made by Scruffy which goes over a lot of audio design in FNAF 1 and honestly it's genius. I recommend watching the video and I'll link it in the description below. But just to quickly go over some of those design choices, the game uses a lot of auditory distractions and red herrings to really help set the mood. You'll often hear carnival music or Foxy humming to throw you off, but oftentimes you'll hear auditory clues that help you survive, such as Freddy's laughter connecting with his movements, pots and pans being heard from the kitchen meaning Chica is in there, and groans coming from both Bonnie and Chica when they're in your office ready to kill you at a moment's notice. Even the silence between Freddy watching you and the moment he attacks, Five Nights at Freddy's audio truly enhances the horror of the game in every way and is really well done. I strongly recommend watching Scruffy's video after this one, his content's amazing. Soundtrack wise, not a lot, but it's great, but audio design wise, it's off the charts, incredibly enhances the game in every way possible. Huh. Five Nights at Freddy's has an interesting visual style which I love but also annoys me. The game was made in 2014 and it feels very 2014. I personally like the visual style of the animatronics, I think they're cool. Design wise, Foxy's probably my favorite, but I love the main cast equally. That means you too, Golden Freddy, get in here. Each animatronic has this Scott Cawthon feeling to it, which is nice. The game does lack a bit in visuals though, mainly the office. It looks like something straight out of a mobile game. And sometimes the game just doesn't look as good as I think it could be, but hey, it's 2014 and Scott's first entry in the series. I think it's good enough. I also don't like how you have to drag from one side to another to reach the doors rather than pressing a keyboard button. You can't just have the whole thing in one big screen. However, I think maybe that was a gameplay mechanic to have you move from one side to another, which enhances the whole feeling of horror in this game to show you're not able to do much in your situation, but I don't know. The game also offers some visual clues to help you out. Like if the camera's disabled, that means someone's on the move. I really like how the camera system looks. The whole game yells horror through pure visuals and audio alone, which I love. Having each animatronic slowly disappear one by one until they're at your office door is so cool. Also the menu screen, really cool. I like it. As this series goes, I'd like to rank each FNAF character and their jump scare, so let's do it. Starting off with Freddy, I like his design, and as the mascot of the franchise, I think he's great, and I love him a lot. I mean, just look at this plushie I have of him. But since he doesn't have too much going for him, I'm gonna give him a B tier. Bonnie. I like Bonnie. I think he's cool. Security Breach didn't like him though, which was strange, and there's a lot of controversy behind whether Bonnie is blue or purple. He's both. I like his big red bow tie and the guitar, but nothing else stands out to me, so he'll go in C tier. I feel like Chica fits in the same category as Bonnie, where I like their design, but nothing else they have stands out to me. Her cupcake disappears when she goes on the attack though, and that's pretty creepy. C tier. Foxy. Oh boy, where do I begin? His design is immaculate, amazing. Everything from his pirate Foxy look to the eye patch, broken hook, those toes, it's spectacular. But I will be placing him in a high A tier, only because there's another Foxy design that really takes the cake. Or booty in this case. Golden Freddy gets a B tier, mainly because his design is like Freddy, but being so mysterious and limp, looking almost lifeless really gives off to who he is and what's his deal. As for the jump scares, from what I assume is due to file size constraints, it's mainly just a repeated loop of the animatronic in your face and then game over. Bonnie, for being the first animatronic that jump scares you but definitely not the last, has a really iconic jump scare which I like a lot. B tier. Chica's jump scare in my opinion feels less impactful than Bonnie's, but is still terrifying nonetheless. C tier. Foxy, for being such a cool character, has a really lame jump scare. It's barely scary, but don't worry, he'll make up for it soon. D tier. Freddy has two jump scares. The one that plays when the battery runs out is scary, but I feel like it's less impactful since you know it's coming. C tier. But in my opinion, the single scariest jump scare in the game is regular Freddy's jump scare. It feels like it comes out of nowhere and it has this really aggressive vibe to it, which scares the shit out of me to this day. A tier. Golden Freddy's jump scare is scary at first, it's really unexpected, but extremely underwhelming every time after. D tier. Despite the game sometimes lacking in visuals, I feel like the atmosphere it gives off definitely makes up for it, and I also enjoy how Five Nights at Freddy's tackled its visual design. Scott Cawthon started his video game making career trying to make a few bucks to help bring in a steady income. He went from making religious video games to cheap computer games to see if one would stick. After being faced with lack of success again and again and again, he was finally able to create an indie horror game that took the world by storm. Five Nights at Freddy's. Every time I hear the story of how Scott created FNAF and what he had to go through to get there, it always makes me admire him more. His success wasn't easy, but even in the face of failure, he never gave up, and look where it brought him now. He first made and published his games on IndieDB, a website made for small indie games, then posted it on Steam Greenlight, where it was given the go and boosted its success, changing his and our lives forever. The game is also filled to the brim with Easter eggs. To list off a few, Golden Freddy is one big Easter egg in itself. Holding down C, D, and plus lets you skip the night. That's how I beat FNAF in record time. Clicking on Freddy's nose in the poster makes a honking noise. Cute. Posters randomly change from time, such as the left hallway having Freddy tweak out, crying children that look like the Binding of Isaac, the missing children's newsletters, It's Me plastered everywhere, Foxy swiggity swooty coming from that booty, and the animatronic heads turning towards the camera. My favorite Easter egg is when the 3 animatronics are staring at you. Even though it can't be found in the official game, it's really creepy to look at. I remember when I first found out about Five Nights at Freddy's. It was late at night in church when I noticed that a group of kids were in the corner together watching something on their iPad. When I went over to watch, I was confused at what the kids were looking at. It was just a bunch of cameras and office nonsense. Yet they seemed terrified, talking about some watch out for Foxy. It was a few moments later when they realized that this Foxy character was missing, and when they checked a nearby camera, there he was, sprinting down the hallway in the office. They screamed and turned off the game quickly. I was so confused but petrified nonetheless. When I went home, I did some of my own research, and that's when I found out about FNAF. The game scared the living shit out of me, but that didn't stop me from catching up with the latest MatPat video or Markiplier Let's Play. Actually, as of writing this script, I remember watching Markiplier's FNAF videos but always refusing to start the video unless I found that one comment with all the jump scare timestamps. I mean, I don't blame my younger self, I'm still terrified to this day. I had nightmares about FNAF. Whenever I turned the lights downstairs off, I was either scared of Elder Shrew Princess chasing me or a FNAF animatronic. I was also scared of being a Bite of 87 victim, and let me tell you, I never saw Chuck E. Cheese the same way again. To this day, I heavily appreciate FNAF 1 for a lot of reasons. I'm a sucker for indie games. They're one of my favorite video game genres. I also really like the elements that make up FNAF, where instead of exploring a horror scene and being chased by a monster, you're fighting for your life as you're forced to sit and survive. Haha, get it? I really love Five Nights at Freddy's. That franchise was my childhood and I still really enjoy it today. Quick little editor's note, I guess. In between of making this script and then actually re-recording it for the video or whatnot, I got the chance to play and beat the new Five Nights at Freddy's game, Into the Pit, and let me tell you, that game was really good. It was exactly what the franchise needed right now. With how much people didn't like Security Breach and all the glitches or whatnot, even though this game wasn't strictly canon to the story, I think, and it was mostly based off the book, which I read a while back but forgot. It was really good. It was fun. The auditory cues were amazing. The gameplay was really good. I liked the story, even though there's parts I'm still confused about, like what the hell's up with the yellow rabbit or the journal you got with all the stuff in it. Like how does she know this? Who is this character? What do we know about her and her uncle? The game is really good, and I feel like it's like a fresh breath of air in the Five Nights at Freddy's games that we've had recently. It's something that I don't know, I just really enjoyed it, and I just wanted to mention it here because I loved it. Recent Five Nights at Freddy's game, loved the hell out of it. And yeah, that's about it. back to today's standards and impacts. I don't think this game would survive in today's standards. When I say today's standards, I want you to imagine the quality of games that come out with the PS5, PC, and Nintendo Switch. I don't feel like Five Nights at Freddy's would really fit in with those standards. I feel this way for 3 major reasons. First, the lack of any real soundtrack. Sure, FNAF has good ambient noises and menu themes with amazing audio design, but lacks what I imagined soundtracks are to be like today. Second, visual design. I really like how FNAF looks and feels because of it, but the office looks like it could really get an HD revamp, and some parts of the game just doesn't look as bright as others. And third, the gameplay. FNAF 1 has amazing gameplay design, which I feel like falls flat compared to the gameplay design of today's games, especially since how much of FNAF 1's gameplay relies on repetition anyways. Now, this isn't to discredit the game in any way. Even though these might seem like negatives, they still work towards the game to help it out in each and every way. All I'm saying is when it comes to being compared to the games that came out today, FNAF 1 would most likely drown and swim. But holy shit, the impacts this game has had are insane. Where do I even begin? The game spiraled into multiple sequels, a book franchise, 2 VR games, a movie which I loved. The game helped bring out a lot of content creators onto the platform, such as Dako and Fusion Z Gamer, countless animations, songs, and videos which I loved watching. I rewatched all of MatPat's theories and Markiplier's videos yearly. I really look up to them both, and they're my 2 go YouTubers for anything FNAF related. There are a ton, and I mean a ton of other fan games that came out thanks to FNAF, my favorite being the joy of creation. FNAF also created tons of childhoods, including mine. I am a longtime fan of the series, and I really love the series, which, by the way, I recommend playing the game with a friend. It makes the experience much more fun. But hey, don't take my word for it. It's just advice I heard from a friend I bonded over since 6th grade thanks to FNAF. Five Nights at Freddy's has had an incredibly huge impact that transcends gaming itself. Five Nights at Freddy's at its core is a game about a haunted pizzeria where you must sit and survive through the 5 nights while avoiding being caught by deadly animatronics. Scott Cawthon left an incredible mark on the community. With its terrifying elements and killer story, FNAF 1 was able to stand out in a time when gaming needed it most. The game may not live up to today's standards with its gameplay, soundtracks, and visuals. However, this does not demean what the game is and what it's done. The impacts made from this game can still be felt today. Being the golden child of the FNAF series, it's an amazing start of not just something new, but a never-ending cycle of games. One that I still enjoy 10 years later. Thank you so much for watching. If you got this far into the video, please feel free to like and subscribe. I think that for being the second video in the 10 years later series, I did pretty good, even though it's a few months delayed. I have a few games I'd like to go over before the year ends, and an idea for the other games which I missed out on since their 10th anniversary already passed. I'm currently working on some gaming videos, some analysis content, and the Roommate React series. Wow, that's a lot of work during college, but it's also really fun making these videos, so I'll just try to keep on making and uploading and see if it goes anywhere. Follow me on Twitter or Instagram since I post a lot of updates there, and I also post a few updates occasionally on my Discord server. If we get enough people back there and active again, I definitely start using it more. And that's it for me. Thank you for watching. I have a bunch of more videos to edit. Subscribe, or I wrote in my script, I shit you not, it says subscribe or be all alone stuck in our little zone since 1987. Join us, be our friend, or just be stuck in the fen, because after all, you only got